Hey, what's good, fam? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com, coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Now, the Crimson Tide will start August football camp on August 6th. We'll have coverage on BamaInsider.com. Definitely hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We'll jump right into it. A couple storylines going into the 2021 season and a couple nuggets to go along with those storylines. And I think right away from the get-go, let's talk about the quarterbacks. I think from the intel that I've gathered going into the month of August, each of these quarterbacks has good momentum going into the season. You start with a starting quarterback coming in. That's going to be Bryce Young. And I think, from what I've gathered from 2-minute situations and the job that he continues to do with 7-on-7 and really finding a rhythm with his wide receivers, I think is the main objective for Bryce Young. And you look at John Mechie coming back, Billingsley on the outside at tight end, Jamison Williams, another guy who has continued to emerge as an incoming transfer. I think Bryce Young has certainly found that rhythm, and it's going to be interesting to see how he controls this offense under Bill O'Brien going into this coming season. But you look at the quarterbacks in the room, Paul Tyson still the number 2 quarterback going into August. And from what I hear on Tyson, he continues to do well. I mean, he's right there. And I know a lot of people aren't talking about Tyson going into this year, but I think in terms of quality depth at the quarterback position, and we'll talk about Jalen Milroe in just a second, you have 3 quarterbacks that are capable of leading this offense. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, outside of Alabama's program, considering they lost Mac Jones. And I think there might be a camp out in college football that doesn't feel that these quarterbacks returning, it's going to be somewhat of a drop-off. But I disagree. I think that Bryce Young, from what we saw during the springtime, I think he is certainly capable of being a complete playmaker. I think when Paul Tyson gets opportunities, he's going to do a fine job leading this offense. And one player that we haven't been able to see, and that's because we didn't see him during the spring game, but he certainly did compete and gain reps during the springtime, was Jalen Milroe. From what I gather, honestly, people have told me that he's the fastest player on the team. You saw him in the weight room pushing a lot of weight. This is a young man that I feel I have no idea where he's at in terms of learning the playbook and the terminology, but look, Jalen Milroe coming in this year, if he does get opportunities this year, I think he's going to really flourish, and I think he's going to be a guy who's certainly really exciting to continue to track going forward. So from Bryce Young to Paul Tyson to Jalen Milroe, Alabama, certainly they might not have a lot of experience, but I think in terms of quality depth, that's something that you have at the quarterback position, even though it is a youthful group. Let's talk about the wide receivers, and I think going into August camp, this is where there's going to be the biggest position battles. Now you have John Mechie, who's returning, outstanding, well-spoken individual. Cannot wait to see him line up on Saturdays. I think he's one of the more underrated wide receivers coming into this year. You also have Jamison Williams, a transfer from Ohio State, hearing fantastic things about him. Sources close to the program told me that he's a bigger version of Devontae Smith. Now, does he have that same alpha dog mentality? Does he have that same Mamba mindset that Devontae Smith has? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. Can he shine when it's game time? I think that's yet to be seen. We're going to learn more about Jamison Williams very soon. But from what we gather, Jamison Williams along with John Mechie, those guys emerging as the leaders at that wide receiver position. But then when you look at the other wide receivers, there's plenty of them, right? You got Javon Baker, you got Christian Leary, Ajay Hall, who certainly shined during the springtime for Alabama. You have JoJo Earl. But one wide receiver that I'm hearing really good things about is Trayshawn Holden. This is a guy, very good connection with Bryce Young. And I'm curious to see how Trayshawn Holden gets reps this August. I think we all know that there's fantastic depth at wide receiver. I didn't even mention Slade Bolden. I think he's certainly in the mix for, a starting position, maybe at that slot position, a guy who has a lot of experience, probably the most experience other than John Mechie coming back to that receiver room. Still trying to figure out the status on Xavier Williams. I know a lot of people feel that he's not on the roster, that he might have transferred out. Look, he's not in the NCAA transfer portal as of August 1st. So going into August camp, we're going to keep tabs to find out the status on Xavier Williams at that wide receiver position. I think when you look to Alabama's running backs going into this season, it's a fantastic group. I think the defensive line of Alabama and the running back room, I think that's where you have the most quality depth overall going into this season. From Brian Robinson returning so much experience, the guy's played in over 52 games. I've talked about that again and again. To Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams, who I honestly feel that if Brian Robinson was to leave, or wasn't returning rather to the season, I think Jace McClellan or Roydell Williams could certainly be the bell cow for this offense. I think they're that good. And then you also have Trey Sanders, who's back from his injury. And I honestly feel that Trey Sanders is very similar to Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams. And then you can't forget about Kamar Wheaton, the incoming freshman 5-star, who I hear has speed. So completely stacked at running back, as they usually are. And that's a good thing for Alabama. Offensive line, you return Evan Neal. Kendall Randolph, he's a guy who's coming back with a lot of experience, and sometimes Alabama puts him at tackle, sometimes they put him at tight end during heavy situations. You got Emil Ekiyor, a lot of experience coming back, and then Chris Owens at the center position. Keep an eye on Jalen Cohen. Coach Saban said that it looks like he could be in the mix for that starting rotation, and I'm really hearing great things about freshman offensive tackle J.C. Latham. And I think as the season gets going, I think you're going to start to see more and more J.C. Latham get some rotation with that first group with the offensive line. As we talked about with the defensive line, Alabama is completely stacked. You saw that Fedarian Mathis attended SEC Media Days, and I think that says a lot about his leadership abilities. I think, the defensive group feels very confident in his leadership abilities and his on-the-field playing abilities. Look, Fedarian Mathis is a guy who has a lot of experience, can make tackles, can clog up the middle, can chase down quarterbacks. So maybe he's an underrated defensive lineman going in. I think a lot of the eyes, when you look to the defensive line, are circled on LeBron Ray. Is this going to be the year where he really comes through and has that big breakout year? I don't think it's a lack of talent for LeBron Ray. He's just, he's had the injury bug that happens to certain players from time to time, but I think 100% LeBron Ray is going to be very impactful for this defense. You got Byron Young, you got Tim Smith, who had a fantastic freshman year, Braylon Ingram, Stephon Wynn, Justin Abogbe, don't forget about him. My goodness, he has a lot of experience. Jamirian Latham, DJ Dell, who's now a junior, Jamil Burrows, Malkel Goodwin. Some of these younger guys coming in very, very talented. So as you can see, it's a very loaded group at defensive line. Inside linebackers, you're going to have Christian Harris, Henry Toto, Shane Lee, Jalen Moody. Very stacked group. I can't wait to see how good Henry Toto is and what he adds. And can he really be that starter? Are you going to see a rotation with him, Jalen Moody? Are we going to see more of Shane Lee this coming year? But I think overall, you have a very solidified inside linebacker group. Then you look to Alabama's secondary, and other than Patrick Surtain leaving, and we've talked about this before, you got Jalen Armour Davis, who did a fine job during springtime. You got Kool-Aid JaQuincy McKinstry as a true freshman. You got incoming junior college transfer Kyrie Jackson. You got the safeties, Jordan Battle, DeMarco Helms. You got the star position players, Malachi Moore, Brian Branch. You got Josh Jobe. That is a loaded group. So maybe the defensive line and the secondary, that's where you have the most depth, along with the running back position. It's just so much experience everywhere within that defensive unit. It's really exciting. Have one more defensive nugget for you as we close out this video. King Makuta, who entered the transfer portal this summer, is still working out with the team. So when you're updating your roster, let's keep an eye on King Makuta. I personally think that when you look to the outside linebacker position, you got William Anderson, you got Chris Allen. Great vets. William Anderson's not really a vet, but we consider him a vet because he's that good. And then behind him, you got Drew Sanders and probably King Makuta, to be honest, because I think Drew Sanders or King Makuta, when they get opportunities, I think those guys are going to be really impactful for the defense. Hey, I want to hear from you inside the comment box. How excited are you to see this Alabama football team in action? The time is now. We're in the month of August. College football right around the corner. I sincerely thank you for being a member of our YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. We'll have tons of coverage coming your way right here on BamaInsider.com. Reporting from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com.